All right, we're rolling. How you doing today, Becky Natrajan?
I'm doing great. And you too?
I'm doing wonderful. Thanks again for joining Coach Tony and I back on the Rising Above podcast. It was an honor to have you on the first time, and I'm looking forward to what our discussion the second time.
Thank you.
I'm doing pretty good. I'm up in Lansing, Michigan, where I was at for about 5 years, and I've been on the Rising Above podcast. I don't know how many times now, Dave.
Oh my gosh, so many.
So many. But for those of you who did not see the first episode with Dr. Becky Natrajan, retired gastroenterologist, I would definitely want you to check that out, because any question you would have about her credentials, I think, is answered in that particular episode for sure, where she details out her entire journey. And I think what you can do here, Dr. Becky, is maybe even just give a quick synopsis of that, like I guess you can call it the what was that back in the day, and you didn't want to read the book? Like, why am I going blank here?
Oh, Cliff Notes.
Cliff notes, yeah, yeah.
Right.
Maybe you can give the cliff notes to that, and if they want more detail, then by all means, that episode was absolutely fantastic in terms of finding out exactly who you are and what your passion is.
Yes. Well, thank you to both of you, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, that's tuning into the podcast. It's always an honor to be here. I grew up in a medically oriented family, so everyone went into some facet of medicine, whether it was a pharmacy, veterinarian, surgical, me, internal medicine, gastroenterology. So I was just brought up in that type of environment. And I trained in Philadelphia for my medical school internship and residency. And while I was doing my internship and residency there, you go through a lot of different clinics. And a lot of people ask me, well, why gastroenterology? Why butts and guts? Why would you pick this basic subspecialty? And it had so much to do with the women that were coming into the clinics, because it's a very male dominated field to be a gastroenterologist. It's a lot different now than it was way back when I was in school. But these women were approaching me with gas, bloating, distension, discomfort, maybe rectal bleeding, nausea, vomiting, liver issues. And they were really uncomfortable to talk to male physicians. So I felt like there was a need, and I really did gravitate toward that need. And when I trained as a gastroenterology fellow at the University of Arizona in Tucson, Arizona, I was the very first woman to ever be accepted to that program. I was the very first woman to be interviewed for that program. And I was the very first woman to set up a program and a practice in Tucson, Arizona. And I practiced till 2005, had a big practice. Did love what I was doing. However, the pharmaceutical industry, the insurance industry, my quality of life took a toll. So I changed a lot of things. I retired from gastroenterology. I went into more holistic and natural nutritional based healing, became medical director for some incredible, formidable nutrition companies, got to travel the world and speak on stage in front of, millions of people over time, educating them about how to take care of your gut, how to take care of something called your microbiome, and what to do nutritionally and naturally to create quality of life through fueling your gut and that microbiome. So today I still do that. I'm into education, and if I can just change lives a little bit every day, that's always been my calling. It's always been my soapbox. So I do want to talk about the microbiome, but I'm going to kind of throw it back to you, Tony and David, because the microbiome has become very mainstream, and I'm going to talk a little bit in detail about it. But years ago, I'd never heard of it, and they never taught about the microbiome of the gut, even when I was in med school, internship, residency, GI fellowship. I've learned it since then. But when did you both first hear about this microbiome? And when you heard about all these organisms living in your gut, was it freaking you out, or you just knew about this?
Well, me personally, I kind of learned about it when I guess kombucha started to become a big thing, and I started listening to some podcasts about it. And then yeah, it just kind of became this thing I've learned a little bit about. I'm not super knowledgeable like you are in this topic, or even maybe Coach Tony. But yeah.
I,
Excellent.
I guess for me, the first time that I can remember, I probably heard about it before this, but that I actually paid attention was through International Sports Sciences Association, when I was becoming or was working on my certification as a specialist in fitness nutrition. I had to write probably two long essays on gut health, and understanding good gut bacteria, bad gut bacteria, how that process works. And I could tell you that I probably have to go back and review those essays. That was 2000, I want to say 2013. So if I had to guess, it's been about 12 years. And once I started getting more involved in understanding supplementation, because boy, do you have to understand what the difference between good and bad when it comes to that particular topic and what supplementation actually means. Microbiome comes up a lot when it comes to probiotics and prebiotics. And things of that nature that are there for gut support. You hear that, as you said, it's thrown around a lot. So microbiome on a daily basis has come up a lot more now for me, but I would say about 12 years ago.
Yeah, and that makes sense. It was probably just a little bit earlier for me when I really started to catch on to the importance of supporting this ecosystem within our gut. And we have, bacteria, viruses, funguses, these trillions of organisms that live in our gut, but we have them in our sinuses, the nasal cavities, our skin. So we do have different ecosystems of this microbiome, but the gut, in my opinion, is the window to your systemic health. Because if you're not supporting that microbiome and you've got something called dysbiosis, that's when the gut starts to act up. Those were all those people coming to see me in clinic with the irritable bowel, the gas, the bloat, distension, discomfort, change in bowel pattern. So common, so prevalent even to this day because the microbiome's not balanced. You've either got great microbiome or really bad. There's usually not an in between. And if you're really good, then systemically you're really healthy. And I really want to impart this to people that when you fuel the microbiome with prebiotics that act like fertilizer for the good microbiome, and probiotics, which are the live organisms like kombucha and certain yogurts and certain pure supplements that have active cultures, you're fueling this microbiome to be strong and healthy and to ward off the bad. And so when you do that, you support your immune system because over 80% of your immune system sits in your gut. You are supporting your endocrine system because the largest endocrine organ of your body is your gut. You're supporting your brain. This is a huge thing. There's actually cookbooks and magazines and everything on the internet about support your microbiome and support your brain chemistry because a super highway between your gut, brain, gut does exist. And so we're seeing that people are warding off anxiety attacks, that they're dealing with depression better, they have better cognitive function, sleeping better, better energy. So when you fuel the microbiome, it's fueling the ability for the brain to have more balance and to hopefully ward off neurodegenerative diseases that we see all the time in forms of various dementias, different neurologic disorders that involve deterioration of the neurons, things that then extend to the whole body systemically, like multiple sclerosis, myasthenia gravis. There's a whole host of things that if your microbiome's not healthy, your brain chemistry is most likely going to be off. I was taught in medical school that when especially women came in with irritable bowel, that they were just crazy. They were just nuts. That's what we were taught. They're just kind of off there. No, it's the absolute opposite. You need to support your gut so you can support the brain. But it really doesn't stop there. And when we look at disease and illness in this country and globally, the microbiome is directly related to our cardiovascular system. It's related to our liver, our pancreas, our biliary system, our adrenal glands, our lungs, our urinary system. And a healthy microbiome will also support the integrity of your gut to ward off inflammation. So let me ask you this. Inflammation, it's the secret killer. How many people do you know or you see every day, David and Tony, that have some kind of chronic inflammatory condition going on?
Oh my gosh, I see it every single day.
Right.
It's crazy.
I'm shaking my head while you're saying it, not because I think you're asking a ridiculous question, but because 10 people went into my brain the minute you even asked that question. And we've talked about this before when we talk about inflammation, when we talk about chronic illness, people almost own it as being part of them, and they wouldn't know what to do if they were healthy. They're almost complacent in their journey. They're okay with whatever it is they have, and they just accept that as being, this is what was supposed to happen to me in life, and there's no way out of it. And so it's really sad to watch, to be honest with you.
I have an interesting story about this. Like last week, there's a guy that I work with. He's severely overweight, eats junk food all day long. Like I've watched him come in with like 2 boxes of pizza from the cafeteria. And apparently this is a common thing where he eats so much and eats so much bad food that he commonly goes to the bathroom and throws up throughout the day. And but then he continues to eat the same way over and over and over again. And I heard him on the phone talking to his wife or whatever, and he was like, "I just wish my stomach would settle down." And I'm thinking, well, maybe you should eat a little better.
Right? Something as simple as that. I mean, we are watching the deterioration of society based on our choices of foods and how we're not supporting our systemic health. And again, I'm all about your systemic health as a result of what you're putting into your gut, what you're drinking, what you're eating. And, my mantra has always been we are just a society of a bunch of waddling ducks following each other down this path of nutritional bankruptcy, toxicity, and now epidemic obesity because our gut's not healthy, our food choices and beverage choices are not healthy, but we live in a toxic society. So we do the best we can with our natural detoxifying capabilities of our internal body to help with that. But we've got to fuel those detoxification pathways. We have to fuel the gut. We have to fuel the cardiovascular system and our urinary system and pulmonary system. And we need skin that has good pores so we can sweat out toxins. So toxins will leave. We can't get away from them, but we can make choices when we can't make a choice about the pollution in the air or the flame retardant on the furniture or the chlorine in certain areas. I mean, there's certain things you just can't avoid, right? And our kids can't avoid. But when it comes to nutrition, we have some really great options. And I, said to you, Tony, I really wanted to get into my soapbox about, toxicity and nutritional bankruptcy. But my new mission right now is what Texas is doing, Senate Bill 25, which will most likely be signed in September of this year, and then labels will change in 2027. But Tony, had you heard of the Texas Bill 25 and not fit for human consumption?
So I have heard of it, and I did not know what it was called. I mean, I did know that was going on, but you're talking about the elimination slash ability for consumers to be able to see immediately on packaging what's in that product that is toxic to them from a consumption standpoint, whether it be yellow dye, red dye, just to name two right there, all the dyes that are involved in our food, whether it's whatever you're drinking or whatever you're eating. I don't know the details of that bill, but
It's
yes, I have heard.
Yeah, it's a brilliant approach. I am backing Texas 100%. I will be getting in touch with someone in their legislature to let them know that I could be a sounding board for them from a medical perspective and just from the perspective of helping people understand choices and reading labels. But basically, they're going to follow the path of what Australia's been doing, the European Union, the UK. Australia, and I'm sure soon to be New Zealand, and now us, where there are certain ingredients that truly are not fit for human consumption. And they're going to institute labels on these products, especially ones that have bleached flour and these artificial dyes. And if you know anything about artificial dyes, this will just make you want to throw up. They are derived from petroleum. It's a flammable thing that comes out of the ground that's known as crude oil that helps to develop gasoline products and crazy things. And then they use all these different solvents and acids and alkali to mix with petroleum to create these yellow dyes, blue dyes, green dyes, red dye. 3 was thrown out recently, but red dye 40 is just as bad. So doesn't that sound wonderful that we're drinking this garbage in the form of Gatorade, and then we're eating candies like these Skittles, or eating all these cereals that are brightly colored like Fruit Loops? So if they are going to continue to put these artificial dyes in products, which I think there's going to be a mainstream change, and they're going to go with natural ingredients, which is going to cost these companies a fortune, but it should, and they should make a change. But we are, as a society, if they don't change their ways, there's going to be this huge label, and I hope they make it the entire package, that says not fit for human consumption. And I want to eat foods that are fit for human consumption. I want to take supplements that are fit for human consumption. So, I just bought the domain notfitforhumanconsumption.com, and here comes my next incredible journey in my soapbox about educating people about these things. And bleached flour, I'll just hit upon this. Bleached flour, they take flour and they add, and I actually wrote this down because I'm like, these sound like incredible yucky chemicals. They take the flour and they bleach it with chlorine gas, chlorine dioxide, benzoyl peroxide, to name the first three. Doesn't sound right, does it? So why aren't we going back to nature? Why are we bleaching things? Why are we putting artificial dyes in there? Why are Fruit Loops fluorescently bright in color? And why are these other countries saying, nay, nay, we don't want this crap in our food chain? Because toxins are part of our food chain and our children's food chain.
What do you think the purpose? What do you think the purpose is of that?
I think the purpose is to make people wake up, and that we are a society that's deteriorating on a health level. And I think it has a lot to do with, these legislatures are of an age group, that whether they're in their 30s, 40s, 50s on up. And a lot of us are in that higher age group. And we've made our decision whether we're going to be healthy or not healthy. Either we're participating in our health or we're participating in our death. It's our choice. But you know what? Our kids and grandkids, they're learning and they're growing. And I think this legislation act will then put it to the forefront that, hey, parents, you really want to go just sliding this crap down the aisle that says not fit for human consumption with your 3-year-old and your baby and your 7-year-old in tow. Is that what we want to do? And I think it's to make people wake up and to change the amount of obesity, have kids read labels with their parents, to get rid of type 2 diabetes, lower the risk of malignancy throughout all ages. So I think it's more of that education of the next couple of generations. I mean, and what do you think about that?
I personally, I agree with you. And I think that buying things that aren't covered in chemicals and things of that nature is super beneficial. But the argument for a lot of people is that they can't afford to buy like organic, or it's difficult. And so like for those people, like what would you say? Like what would you recommend?
Well, okay, so let's kind of break that down. Let's say that you are on food stamps because you have some financial challenges, and they cover fruits and vegetables and seeds and nuts. And they also cover some things that are, I feel, not appropriate. But so that's one avenue that you can take those food stamps. You can actually buy some healthy things for your family. The other thing is I find it very interesting that, when I drive by fast food chains, whether it's McDonald's, Burger King, Arby's, all that stuff, always packed, packed with everybody in the drive-through inside ordering garbage. And it's not cheap anymore. I don't know if you looked at the prices recently with some of this fast food, it's ridiculous. So what you could do is you could look at your budget on what you spend, per week or per day, and break it down to what the food stamps would cover, or what you could buy at the produce. The produce section always has some sales. I always find big containers of mushrooms for like $1.15, and they're still good for several days. They have sections of food that, fruits and vegetables that are, going to be a little bit more perishable in a few days, that are next to nothing. You can actually pick up tangerines and bananas at my store for free because they're a couple days old. There are so many ways that you can make the good choices and make it financially sound for you and your family. But you'll always find that extra $10 to go get the Big Mac and the fries and the big sodas and all these giant gulps and diet things and fruit juice things that people always find money for. They always find money for their coffee. They always find money for things that are not healthy for them.
Yeah.
And when it comes down to, I can't afford it, I can't afford to do like a protein shake. Well, a protein shake, when it's a good one, is a meal replacement. It will replace breakfast. It will replace lunch. It will replace dinner. It has all the nutrients you need to survive on a daily basis. What do you spend on breakfast? What do you spend on lunch? What do you spend on dinner? Why don't you just take that and reverse that financially? Go, I'm saving money because I'm doing a shake instead of some crappy dinner. So it's just an excuse in my eyes. There are some other really significant financial issues people deal with, but there's food banks. Where I live in Utah, there are food banks every single day of the week at these grocery stores, and they have tons of great produce. The farmers markets are always donated. The grocery stores are, and they're not donating crap. They're just giving you really good, healthy produce, nuts and seeds, and it's there every day. So I get tired of the excuses because you can make some choices, I think, that are more sound for you and your family.
So I want to say this real quick. Everything you're saying right now, and I'm thinking about this in my head, the one word that keeps coming into my brain as you're speaking is habitual. It's a habit to do what they're doing. If you're asking them to go to a farmer's market and to purchase better produce, if you're asking them to change their shopping habits, shop the walls on the outside more so than in the interior, if you're asking them to make this drastic change to a healthy protein shake, which means that they have to do their due diligence when it comes to understanding what should go into the shake and what is going to be effective for them and beneficial for them for good gut health. Now they have to do their homework, and now they have to do more work, and now they don't want to do that. It's just easier to be unhealthy and continue down the path they're on. And I don't get it. I don't want to understand it, but well, maybe I do want to understand it, but I don't know how I'm going to understand it because it makes no sense to me. I think that is the biggest problem. I don't know. Sometimes I'm in my brain, I tell myself they truly want to be healthy. They really do. They just do not feel like they have the time or the effort to put into changing their lifestyle, which sadly, within a matter of no time at all, you could do a complete reversal, a 180, if you will, and turn your life. I'm not saying you'll be back to the metabolic health you were in before you began this journey, but you will become habitual in your ways and start these programs, the eating, the exercise, just to name two. Whether there's therapeutic modalities out there that are great for you as well, whether it's sauning, whether it's cold plunging, mobility training, all these things that go together with the health and wellness industry. People do not want to go down that journey. They want the overnight pill. We talked about this in the last episode we had. We had Dr. Becky on, and that's the biggest problem in my eyes. People do not want to make the change because it takes effort.
I agree with that. How about this, in terms of expense and effort? Instead of the sodas, instead of the really high caffeinated energy drinks, how about water? Last time I checked, I mean, most water that comes out of the faucet is drinkable. It's not going to kill you. How about water? It's pretty much free. Add some lemon to it so it helps to cleanse your liver and biliary system. How about that? Just make like one simple change. And I understand the habitual aspect of this. Of course, people like it's simple. Let's go through the drive-through. Let's get everybody a happy meal, and then we're on our way because it's quick, it's easy, and yeah, I'll shell out the extra money. But what would you rather have? The habit of starting to become healthy, or the habit of I've got to miss work because of my doctor's appointments. I've got to change my schedule around, and somebody's got to watch my kids because I got a CAT scan. I have an MRI. I have an ultrasound. I got to go to the ER. Oh my God, I've got to be hospitalized. I'm going to have a surgery. That's the habitual aspect of health you don't, or non-health, that you don't want at all, because people always make time in their busy schedule to get to the doctors, but they don't
Yeah.
do the due diligence to like take a peek at maybe one article about hydration with water, or a prebiotic or a probiotic, or something new that they should incorporate to their, their systemic health. So to me, and that's not expensive, where expense is all the health challenges. Dialysis is expensive, cardiac bypass is expensive, medications are super expensive, cancer is expensive. I mean, there's so many things out there that just destroy us financially when your health deteriorates. Yeah, so have that habit of doing all the bad things, getting more and more obese, and having all the things that come with obesity and metabolic syndrome, and then watch what happens financially. So to me, you got to look at the big picture. But again, I'm more focused. You've made your choice as an older individual. You've got to educate the kids. You've got to incorporate them into reading labels. And my website's going to talk about that a lot. Like, what about parents when they go to the grocery store with their kids? They go, let's look at this label of this Lunchable. Let's see what's in our SpaghettiOs. Let's see what's in, and we read. And we read it with our kids. They can learn more vocabulary, and then they're going to go, I can't pronounce that. Well, you don't want to eat that. That's sodium benzoate, or that's, high fructose corn syrup. You want to actually stay away from aspartame. And then you could have teachers that teach classes that say, okay, kids, you go to the grocery store. Our class project this month is you pick out 2 products that are your favorite products in the grocery store, and you do an analysis on it and write a quick book report about the ingredients. Well, my kids would just show up with an avocado and a banana, going, well, I'll give you the nutritional value of these, and there's no label, just nutrition, So I don't know. I think there's so many things that we can do to wake the public up, but we've got to educate, because why aren't we seeing this on the news as a segment every day? like a news segment instead of murder and mayhem and bombing and World War III and one more thing about Trump and blah, 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 and one more weight loss commercial and one more injection commercial. Why aren't we just throwing some really good stuff in there? Just a little bit. Hey, today we're going to talk about drinking half your body weight in water. Maybe add some lemon to it. Kids, tune in. I mean, what are we doing? I don't even know if Sesame Street's doing any of that stuff or the Electric Company or all the stuff I used to watch when I was a kid. But there has to be a change. And that's why I continue to educate.
I mean, I think we're slowly seeing a change, especially like in podcasts and on YouTube and TikTok and social media. I mean, at least my algorithm show me healthy stuff for the most part, and probably because that's the type of lifestyle I typically live. But I wanted to ask you about like the effects on the microbiome on like whole foods and pesticides and that stuff that's sprayed on the foods. Because like oftentimes people go to the store, they buy fruit, they buy vegetables thinking that it's healthy, but what they don't realize or maybe they're not aware of is what they're coated in and how that could affect them and affect their stomach. Because like that's something I've tried. Like, I when I go to the store, I try to buy things that haven't been sprayed or organic or whatever.
Yeah. And you can certainly look for those, but the ones, I mean, like if you look at tomatoes, for example, how shiny they are sometimes, and like you pick them up and they're kind of slimy. Like I wash the heck out of those. I mean, I try to avoid anything that looks too pretty because, good food is meant to degrade fairly quickly. Organic food will degrade quickly, but stuff that's processed and the pesticides, insecticides, and then like meats with hormones, antibiotics, stuff just sits on the shelf forever. And it's not as good, obviously, as going organic. But if you're getting produce that you're worried about it being sprayed, wash the heck out of it. Make sure it's cleaned off. Don't just sit down and eat it because you don't know what's on it or how many people touched it from the farm to the grocery store. So that kind of thing is common sense. But you don't go to the canned aisle and buy fruits and vegetables because those are canned cadavers of fruits and vegetables. They have no nutritional value by the time they're plucked from the fields, and then they are treated, and then they are put with preservatives in cans that are aluminum or what kind of makeup they are. That is just cadaver food right there. So you're better off in the produce section than you are in the other sections.
Yeah, I tell people always say this. They say this kind of leads, and we don't have to get into it just yet, but supplementation is something that's always on the table when it comes to health and well-being. And people will always say, well, I don't trust any supplementation and I don't need to supplement because I eat this, this, and this every day. And I try to explain to them supplementation is exactly what it's called, supplementing. You're not using it for everything. You're supplementing the problems that we may have with how we grow our food, how we store our food, how we reheat our food and cook our food, how we protect our food, which is basically everything you and David were just talking about. And so because of that, maybe we decrease the nutritional value to a certain extent of the food, even the good foods.
Mhm.
And so supplementation is, in my opinion, just something that you can do, especially when you find the right supplementation, something you can do to add nutritional value to your daily intake consumption to make up for whatever it is that's being taken away because of how we grow our food and how we store our food, shelf life and things of that nature. So that's I when you were talking about that, I was just thinking to myself, there's a reason for supplementation, but because of what you and
Mhm.
David brought up.
Yeah, absolutely. And you also want your supplements to read fit for human consumption. My supplements that I take, and I've been supplementing since my 20s, and I'm now 60, and I supplement with something every single day. And I use, plant-based certified organic supplements. That's what I want to put in my body. And over the years, my supplements have always been very high quality, and I know they've supported my health tremendously. Not only supported my microbiome, but, given me the ability to always be, multitasking and focused and energetic and to have, a great appetite for good things. Like a healthy body craves healthy things, unhealthy body craves unhealthy things. And I'm not a purist. I mean, I do eat a lot of, fruits and vegetables. No more seafood than meat. I rarely do meat anymore. That's my choice. But I do supplement because sometimes I miss a meal. Sometimes I'm on the run, I'm traveling. So I take my supplements with me, and I take them because I know I'm getting that extra that I do need, that I'm just not getting from my foods. And yes, Tony, our foods are nutritionally bankrupt because as we continue to strip soils with all the tilling of the soils and replanting, and we are less nutritionally solid than what we were back in the 20s and 30s and 40s with farming, where we were more nutritionally solid with our grounds. And now we're very minerally depleted, vitamin depleted, the grounds are depleted, and they're poisoned. So we are in this state of nutritional bankruptcy. And yeah, I think supplementation is paramount for all age groups. And if you're taking supplements that have labels on them or just ingredients that say, things that you can't understand, you don't know how to pronounce them, they look unusual to you, you really don't need to be eating those. And you really don't need to be putting that cream on your skin if it's got the phthalates and the parabens and all the other, toxins that we see in fragrances and shampoos and skincare, and then all the other stuff with plasticizers and, plastics that are hormone disruptors. So, we do the best we can, right? But supplementation, in my eyes, is paramount for any age group. And I'll touch on this too, is that as we age, our digestion and our ability to break down carbohydrates, fats, and proteins declines because we're not able to produce as many digestive enzymes as we did when we were teenagers and in our 20s. So our pancreas has this ability to produce amylase and lipase and proteases and things that break down all these nutrients. And when they're breaking down, then they're absorbed into our bloodstream in an appropriate fashion. But as we age, the exocrine pancreatic function starts to decline. So I do daily digestive enzymes before I eat to properly break down all the carbs, proteins, and fats so that they can be assimilated through into the vascular system and not cause inflammation. Because if you're absorbing nutrients that are not broken down properly, and I call it yuck, I call it proteinaceous yuck and fatty yuck and carbohydrate yuck. And when this stuff seeps through into the vascular system, that's the cause of the inflammatory cascade being set up in our body, where this whole cascade of inflammation says, wow, and then it becomes chronic. And then autoimmune phenomenon can start to set in, and inflammation causes heart disease, and it's linked to obesity and diabetes and blah, blah, blah. So enzymes important as you get older, supplementing with reds, greens is what I do as well, organic, because I think that's really important to give me that extra prebiotic. And then I do probiotics, so supporting the microbiome. And I cleanse, and we could talk about cleansing as a whole separate avenue, but whether you're doing like a nutritional cleanse to just support the liver and the vital organs that detoxify you naturally, or you're doing something to get rid of biofilm in your gut, which is a slime that can encase bad microbiome. And that's what I do regularly to get that slime out, to proliferate the good bacteria. That's what I do on a regular basis. So I think we pick a routine, whether it's just drinking more water to start out with, or doing what I do or what you do, what David does, that we really stick to a routine because we love our healthy body, we love our healthy mind, and we love the fact that we're craving healthy things. It doesn't happen overnight if you're not healthy, but it will happen if you just make a stand and you make a decision to start somewhere. That's all.
When you say you do a cleanse regularly, what does that consist of, and what are like the symptoms of that? Like, what do you?
So there's a couple of cleanses I've been familiar with over the years. There was a company that I was actually their medical director for many years that had a cellular cleanse. And I used to do that every quarter, where it was basically fortifying mainly the liver, but also the ability for your cells to just function with better communication, better mitochondrial energy. So this type of cleanse was cellular. It wasn't like a true colon cleanse. So this actually just focused more on the cellular cleansing and replenishing. So I still do that about every 3 to 4 months. And then every now and then I do something called a vitamin C lymphatic cleanse, where I do high doses of vitamin C crystals, and I do it in several doses of water with vitamin C crystals to flush my lymph. And the lymphatics, there's thousands and thousands of miles of lymphatics in our body. That's our immune system, where we have the ability to fight off infection, ward off bacteria, funguses, parasites, viruses. So I feel a lymphatic cleanse to me every quarter is appropriate. And then I do something nightly, and it's a product with the company that I represent right now, is Sante Organics, all plant-based certified organics. And this particular product is called Phyto Cleanse. And it's a magnesium-based product, all plant-based in terms of its nutrients. And what it does is when you take it regularly at night, it allows for this slime in the colon especially, but also the small intestine, to be eliminated. Because if you think about when you get up in the morning and your teeth have some slime on them, and you just run your tongue over your teeth, and you're like, oh, that's yucky, gotta go brush. So same thing with your intestinal tract. You can get this pond scum. Same thing with a pond. You see the scum? This is like pond scum in the lining of your intestines. So if you have the bad microbiome, they like to be helping each other and hanging out in colonies. They have their own bad ecosystem, but they also have this like cement housing over them called biofilm. A lot of people don't know this. You can research it. All the data is there. But the biofilm encases these nasty colonies of dysbiosis, this bad microbiome, and they don't allow anything to get rid of it unless you really cleanse that slime out of there. This Phyto Cleanse has been shown to do that. So I take 1 to 2 before I go to bed. And healthy bowel movement, it doesn't give you diarrhea, it doesn't give you gas or cramps, it just gets rid of that slime. And then if you're eating healthy to support that microbiome proliferation with the good stuff, then here comes the balance. And here comes you feeling differently and supporting all the systemic areas I had previously mentioned. So I do a little bit of different things based on, quarterly and based on nightly. That's just me. But again, you can pick something that suits you and your lifestyle, and whatever you do. The products that I've represented, they're never going to hurt you. They're only going to help you.
That you mentioned Asante Organics, and I myself do the Phyto Cleanse. I do the Beehive, which is basically helping me with internal, with inflammation, and you can go into much more detail with Beehive than I can. And I have to reorder my probiotics, and I currently do the greens as well. And so that's just part of my supplementation that I do. When it comes to that particular, when it comes to Asante Organics. And I think I told you after maybe 3 weeks that I began to notice the difference in terms of regularity. And just sleeping better. And there's so many different things that go into that. It's not just because of that. It's because of my regimen that I'm on. It's because I drink enough water. It's because of the way I eat 85 to 90% of the time. It's because I exercise. It's because of other things that I'm doing on top of that help me feel healthy. I'm going to be 55 years old, ladies and gentlemen, in who cares? In a couple of weeks from when we're talking right now, I mean, somebody might watch this show 10 months from now. I'm already 55. But if you're watching it, as soon as David puts it out there, it's a good chance that I'm just turning 55 years old. I don't feel 55 years old. The 55 years old that we used to see, Dr. Becky, when we were a lot younger, looks way different than the 55 to 60 years old that we see now. Why is that? Why is it? It seemed like when you saw somebody who was 55 to 60 years old back when we were in our 20s, early in our late teens, you thought to yourself, my goodness, they're old. And here we are. And I know you've said this before, and I'm saying it now. David's excluded from this conversation in the moment. I don't feel like what I perceived them to look when I was that age. Does that have something to do with people are being more vigilant in their eating and in their supplementation and in their exercise now? Or is it something else? Is it something artificial? Is it a little bit of both? What are your thoughts on that?
Wow, that's an interesting question, because there's so many answers that come to mind. I think when you're younger, And you just even hear the age. Like if you're a teenager and someone's 55, you're like, oh my God, you're so old. You're 60. Oh my God, you're over the hill. So your perception, you're really young, and then you're like, well, that person's really old. And then you may just think that they're, looking old because of their age gives them that look. But in terms of, there are a lot of people I run into that are 70 and 80, and I'm like, you can't be that old. You look phenomenal. Either they're doing the right thing, they're hydrating, they're doing exercise, they're eating things to support their microbiome, they're doing healthy choices. That is part of it. But because we eat a lot of foods that have these preservatives and things that give a prolonged shelf life, that may also be a contributing factor. But I look at some people that are my age and your age and even David's age, and I'm like, and I hear their age and I'm like, oh my God, you look 20 years older than that.
Yeah.
So it's all over the board. It has a lot to do with, how you're taking care of yourself, perception from the other person, and then preservatives in our foods. And, even like with aspartame, that makes formaldehyde in our system and a lot of it. And that's an embalming solution. So I think there's all kinds of things to consider when we talk about that. But I usually run into people this day and age that when they're my age, they look a lot older. And I know what they're eating, and I know that they don't drink water. And some of my age group, I have one friend, and she goes, I hate water. I hate the way it tastes. I'm like, how do you hate the way water tastes? That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. But you will go straight to Starbucks like 5 times a day. So put some lemon in your water, put some strawberries, some cucumber, do something in your water to make it taste good, do something. But I think it's all over the board. And so, David, how old are you? You're the youngin', huh?
I am. I'm 31.
31. All right. Yeah, you don't belong in this conversation.
But Sarge and I were just having this conversation, I believe, on the last episode we did. And when you look at somebody who, because I was complimenting him, saying that, he's like, you said 55, you'll be 55?
Be 55, and today's the 22nd, so about 9 days.
He's the best 55-year-old I think I've seen in a long time. I mean, but he works out, he's focused on nutrition and health. But when I remember, like when I was a kid and somebody said they were 55, you thought, man, they're old and they're like dying, they're almost dead, and they looked like it. And now it seems like people look younger.
Mm-hmm.
For some odd reason.
Well, there's also plastic surgery that's gone rampant. There's a lot of Botox.
Yeah, that's the artificial part that I was talking about. Could it be that?
Definitely. I mean, people do a lot of Botox. People are still doing gastric bypass. I mean, I had a lady that I was talking to the other day, and she's like, I need to gain a little bit more weight. So my doctor says I then qualify through my insurance to get my gastric bypass. So she was eating everything in sight to gain more weight, so her insurance would pay for her gastric bypass. What is that about? Great doctor, by the way. Yeah. So I don't understand that school of thought. And then the other thing I wanted to touch on is all these commercials that drive me absolutely insane, because I don't watch much TV, but you know how these commercials come on for this weight loss craze we're in with injecting ourselves with these drugs. That'd be like the last thing I'd want to do to attempt weight loss, is take needles and inject myself. How fun is that? But from a GI standpoint, GI doctors are seeing so many patients. I mean, GI offices are flourishing, clinics are flourishing, because these drugs basically cause something called gastroparesis, which is the slowing down of the contractibility of your gut. So instead, like the normal gut has peristalsis, that means movement. So when you eat something and you chew it, and then you release digestive enzymes like amylase from the mouth, and your esophagus, the tube that takes the food to the stomach, has its ability to contract. And then your stomach contracts, and then your small intestine and your large intestine, and then you eliminate. Well, these drugs, one of the big things is that they slow down digestion and absorption. You feel fuller faster, don't want to eat as much, but it's basically paralyzing the peristalsis. So people feel nauseous and they're vomiting, and then they're constipated and they're bloated. And now the GI doctors that I talk to that are still in practice are like, oh, clinics are packed. These weight loss drugs are great for us. I'm like, how sad, another sad point of the pharmaceutical industry destroying our lives. And then saying, basically you have to take it for life, because as soon as you stop it, you gain all your weight back. but just the fact that we're injecting ourselves is really insane. I mean, I understand if you're a type 1 diabetic and you have to inject yourself with insulin or you die, but for us to be injecting with all these crazy complicated medications that cause side effects so you can lose weight instead of making nutritional choices makes me ill.
I mean, that goes back to what we've talked about before, Tony, with people wanting the instant gratification. They want the instant results. And so they're willing to do something so risky, like injecting themselves with this thing that they'll have to take for life. And
I
I've seen people who've done like Ozempic and some of these other drugs, and it does not look good. They shed the weight, and then they have either loose skin or they look like just skin and bones. It does not look good.
I I feel bad. If you look at my social media, you guys are both on my personal Facebook page. You know that if you follow me at all, I joke around on Facebook. I don't take it serious.
Hey, you're a
Yeah.
very controversial person.
I post 80s videos, 80s trivia, a joke about the fact that it rained 3 months in a row here in the area of Northeast Ohio. Even though we're in Lansing right now, where I'm living in Northeast Ohio. So I'll post a joke about that. I try to stay away from all the controversy, but I do get tired of I feel bad for anytime somebody says to me, I'm doing Ozempic, I'm doing Moderna, I'm doing Wegovy. Um, and I try to even begin a conversation, not scolding them, but just letting them know what I've read about the problems it causes with the pancreas, about the problems that it can cause with hypoglycemia, the problems it can cause as far as tumors and these are early studies because the studies haven't been around long enough yet, but tumors, thyroid cancer possibility. I don't care how low the percentages are. These are the possibilities. And just be on the lookout for that. Be on the lookout for the fact that and Dr. Becky just said this, once you stop taking that particular drug, not only are you going to gain your weight back, you're going to gain more than what you weighed previously. That's just a fact and if you stop it and you don't do anything holistically and naturally for health and wellness, change your diet, begin to exercise, you're really going to ask for a world of problems.
Yes.
And I don't know, I try to do that, and boy, do I wish I could record some of the conversations. I mean, I get cussed out. Like they get really upset, and I know where it's coming from. It's not that they're mad at me; they're just so frustrated in themselves that they don't want to hear. They're looking for the overnight pill, right? And they're looking for happiness, and they're desperate to find it. And don't you dare try and take that happiness from them now that they have found it. And it's sad to see. It's sad to see.
I
I
mean, the true
agree.
question is how long will that happiness last? Because you'll now have to be on this drug for life, and knowing that you can't come off of it. I mean, that's I would think that would affect my happiness.
Definitely. And look at some of the people you run into that are doing these drugs. They're not like jumping around and energetic and good color in their face. No, they're losing their hair, especially women. Their hair's falling out because of nutritional bankruptcy, and they're not absorbing well. They're not digesting well. They're not eliminating properly. Their skin is starting to sag. It's not elastic anymore. They just look, kind of overtired, not sleeping as well. Like I have yet to meet somebody who's like, I'm on Ozempic and I feel awesome. They're like, I'm on Ozempic, but do you think that's what's causing my hair loss? Or do you think that's why my skin's starting to look really yucky? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, come on, folks. Like, ladies and gentlemen, let's wake up out there. And the pharmaceutical industry is all about lifetime, drugs. Even when I was in practice so many years ago, the big thing at that time is if you were a woman at age 50, especially over 55, you were supposed to be prescribed an antidepressant for the rest of your life, whether you were depressed or not, because we were prone to depression after age 50. What the heck was that? I mean, and then, acid reflux. You need to be on this for life. No, if you lost 10 pounds, you wouldn't have acid reflux anymore. You wouldn't need this ever. You just take it once in a blue moon when you have heartburn because you ate the wrong foods. Antibiotics. You don't get 20 days of antibiotics. You should just take 3. I mean, the studies show that after like 3 days of Cipro, your urinary tract infection's gone. You don't need 10 days. And then you wreck your microbiome. And then you've got diarrhea. And then you feel like crap. I mean, I could go on and on and on. That's, it's
Right.
one of my soapboxes. And I grew up in a pharmacy. So I know everything about pharmaceuticals, everything. But
You go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, you did grow up in a pharmacy, and anybody who doesn't know that story, it's in the episode just prior to this one. She talks all about that.
Yeah.
Literally grew up in a pharmacy right upstairs.
Yes, I grew
So
upstairs of a pharmacy, and I
yeah,
had, I don't know, like almost like a dozen pharmacists in my family, the extended family.
yeah.
So, and even in medical school, they still teach a year of pharmacy and pharmacology and 3 days of nutrition. So, let me make mention of one other thing with the Texas bill, the Senate Bill 25. So, not only is this legislature going to pass, I know it is, and I'm going to be a sounding board for these individuals. And it's going to be about getting rid of, the dyes and getting rid of the bleach flour. It should get rid of aspartame and high fructose corn syrup. And there's a bunch of others that really, piss me off. But the other thing in the law is that starting grades K through 8, every day in school, they have gym, daily activity, not once in a blue moon, every single day. And then from 8 until graduation and then going into college. And if you're going to become a healthcare professional, guess what? You get regular nutritional training. Never happened before. It was never mandated before. What a great move. Again, I'm so happy with this bill because it makes so much sense. And so Texas is taking the charge with this. But when it passes and these manufacturers say, well, you know what, we're going to keep all that food dye and all that bleach flour going there. But they're going to have to put labels on everything throughout the United States. And the reason they're contemplating not getting rid of the artificial dyes is because it's going to be super expensive for them, like the company Gatorade, for instance, that uses every chemical known to man, that they would have to use like pomegranate or beets or carrots or raspberries or different greens to flavor their drinks. It's going to cost them a fortune. But you know what? We need to grow more in our farmlands. We need to support our farmers. We need to support America. So it should go full circle. And then they should start using food colorings, natural food colorings, get rid of the chemicals. It's going to be really interesting to see the fight. I know that Heinz stepped up to the plate last week and said, oh, well, we're going to take the crap out of our ketchup, dyes and different sugars and stuff like that. Oh, well, good for them. But we're going to see a fight with some of these other companies that are not going to be too happy about changing things.
No, I think I don't want to say I'm looking forward to it. I think what I'm going to sit down with my bowl of popcorn, no extra butter, folks, and a nice tall glass of ice water with lemon. And I watch this show go on. I'm just going to sit and take in the amount of people who criticize this movement, and not because it's not something that is extremely beneficial to the well-being of this country, but simply because of who's in charge of the movement, which completely baffles me on a daily basis when it comes to this. This has nothing to do with whether you are on that side of the aisle or that side of the aisle. This has everything to do with the health and well-being and turning this country back to where it was at before 1977. And I don't understand I blame social media to a certain extent. I blame the media to a certain extent. And I blame adults who cannot think for themselves, whether they want to hear that from me or not. You have to put aside who's quote unquote in charge of this country at this point in time and start looking at what this is going to do for us, for the citizens of this country.
Mhm.
That's what should be the main focus. And
Right.
if you focus on that, the way the Europeans have focused on that, you won't have to worry anymore about all these dyes and everything else. I posted one time an article on Facebook when I got really controversial one time about the European movement there and how certain, yellow dyes, red dyes, certain, different types of um um whatever you want to call it, different agents that were being used with their crops for growing their vegetables and growing their fruits have been eliminated, completely eliminated from that country. Literally, it's illegal to use that. And I actually have people coming on and telling me it's fake news,
Ah,
that that's a bunch of garbage, that they were just over there 6 years ago and they had a bowl of Lucky Charms and I first of all, I guarantee you they weren't over there 6 years ago. Just coming from the person who said they were over there. This This person lives in Youngstown, Ohio, and has not left Youngstown, Ohio
Ever.
since Romper Room was taken off the air. So I don't even want to hear that, but it's literally a fact. It's a fact. If you look it up and you look it up through the proper channels, you will find that Europe has eliminated so many different dyes, so many different chemicals and foods that are no longer allowed to be used. Even in the bad foods, if you take McDonald's French fries, as bad as they are, I would rather they were the McDonald's French fries from the 1970s and early 80s than the McDonald's French fries today, because they cook them completely different now. And it's amazing to me.
That's why you will find a French fry like on your floor in the back of the car that's been there for maybe a year and it looks the same. So, what was the movie? It was Super Size Me many years ago. And that was a classic movie where the gentleman decided he wanted to do a supersize. Well, he was going to go to McDonald's for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for a month. Remember this movie? It was excellent. And he got death threats, by the way, and he had to leave the country for a while for real. But anyway, so he had breakfast, lunch, and dinner at McDonald's. And if they said, would you like to supersize that? He would have to say yes. So he ate that food for a month and he almost died. So he had 3 physicians following his journey. There was a GI, cardiologist, may have just been an internist, but his liver function test went off the charts. His cardiac function started to decline. Sugar off the charts, going into type 2 diabetes, gaining visceral fat. So they actually told him to stop like before the month was over because he was going to die. But during those extra segments in that movie, he took organic French fries and put them in a bowl or put them like on a plate with a covering over it. And he put the McDonald's fries and then did the same thing. And then took like a cheeseburger that was, meat that was considered organic, no hormones, antibiotics, no steroids, that stuff. And then he let that hamburger with regular bread sit in this little domed area. And then he had a McDonald's, like filet of fish and a cheeseburger. Well, the bottom line is that the stuff that was organic or like regular potatoes and the regular burger with the bread, it started to get really moldy and yucky after a couple of days. Like it just was disgusting. Well, that's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to degrade. So I think it was like 90 days later, they kept showing the camera and the camera would go zip and they'd show those fries and they were identical, like month after month after month. I think the cheeseburger degraded after 30 days and the filet of fish in like 2 weeks. But I was just like sitting there going, because I had kids at the time, and yeah, we would stop at McDonald's. I find these damn fries on the floor like a month later, and I'm like, you can eat this. What is that?
It's truly amazing.
It is truly amazing.
Shelf life. That's what we call it. We call it shelf life. We could put these things on the shelf, and we could sell them 2 months from now, and not have to worry about losing profit based on throwing waste away. I mean, that's the whole name of the game there. Exactly. But there's so much we can get into there. As far as David, anything else you wanted to throw in?
Not regarding that topic, no.
Switch it up. Let's do 180.
While you guys were talking, I was busy looking up obesity rates in Europe compared to the United States. And hold on, I'll share it to the screen because it was kind of interesting. Here, hold on a sec. It's kind of cool because Sarge can like take over the conversation and I can just kind of zone out and like look up things while you guys are talking. But so this was interesting. This is a map of the obesity rates in the United States, state by state. Oklahoma is 39.4 and Ohio 37.7. You guys are fat. But it's interesting because like the Cajun states are pretty obese. They're
yes. So is the light green the healthier?
Yep. That's 25.1 Colorado. Probably because they're all hiking.
Yeah. It's still 25% a lot.
California's 27.6.
Okay.
So, and then Europe, this is interesting. Look at this. Wow. Spain is 19.7. France is 10.92. Yeah, so it's, extremely less than the
Yes. Now, it'll get worse if they keep adopting our ways. If they keep adopting the crap that we're doing over here, things are going to deteriorate over there. But I think they're smarter than that. They've shown it so far with banning certain things. And I think that they'll be the first to ban aspartame and high fructose corn syrup and things like that. And I really have this desire to get aspartame out of the food chain because it's in about 500 products. And a friend of mine back in Tucson created a documentary back in 2004, and it's called Sweet Misery, Poisoned World. I think the Poisoned World was the second part, but Sweet Misery. And it's about the journey of Donald Rumsfeld taking Cereal Pharmaceuticals through getting aspartame passed as an artificial sweetener, no matter what it took. Researchers disappeared, monkey studies disappeared, the fact that cancer rates increased 400% were never disclosed, but the increased rates of brain cancer now in kids and adults since aspartame has been put on the market has escalated tremendously. Arthritic conditions that mimic multiple sclerosis, myasthenia gravis, just general arthritic aches and pains, Alzheimer's, neurodegenerative diseases. So I have a real pain in my side when it comes to aspartame and the fact that our kids are drinking this garbage. But of course, it's probably or considered carcinogenic, and all those little probablys are possibly kind of technological terms that to me means it's cancerous and it should not be in our food chain. But that's just my thoughts. Maybe we can add that to Senate Bill 25. It's another poison that needs to get out of our food chain.
The two C's. One of them hung around for a year. The other one's been around forever. We lose, I think what I saw in research studies, or not even research studies, just surveys, we lose somewhere between 1 and 1.6 million people a year to various forms of cancer. Mm-hmm. If we waged a war on cancer the way we did in 2020 on COVID, maybe we would have cured cancer already. It's just amazing to me to watch the amount of hostility over that we dealt with in 2020 and how vigilant people were about that disease. And folks, I'm not taking away from the fact that disease did a lot of damage. I'm talking about you've been okay for 50, 60 years now with the fact that what we're doing to our bodies in a health and wellness platform is causing, it's not the only thing that causes cancer, but it does cause cancerous cells, which lead to cancer, which lead to over 1 million people dying on a yearly basis. And yet it happens in 1 year with this one disease. And it is, everybody looked like Dustin Hoffman in that movie. What was the movie? Where they're in full body?
I know which one.
Outbreak.
Yes,
Outbreak.
yes.
David was going to Google it. Outbreak. Let's look like Dustin Hoffman in Outbreak, and let's make sure that. And if you're not wearing all that, let's make sure that you are pinpointed as the person who caused thousands of deaths here. But yet, let's smoke, drink, let's eat yellow dye 5, let's eat aspartame, high fructose corn syrup. Let's do all that stuff in amazing amounts. And because here's the thing, COVID, it was a disease that for people who had underlying conditions, a lot of times, not always, but had underlying conditions a lot of times, it overtook their immune systems and it did kill them. It happened rapidly, so it was paid more attention to. Cancer is something that it doesn't happen overnight.
Right.
It takes years and years of neglect.
Yes.
But now here we are in a situation where every year over 1 million people are getting cancer based on the neglect from 10 years ago. And it just continues to multiply and multiply. And we can't find a cure. We don't understand what's wrong. And I think people get mad at me when I talk about this, but the point is, I'm not telling you if you eat perfect and supplement perfect and work out, and I'm not telling you that you're not going to get cancer. I'm telling you that you can lower the percentages of getting cancer tremendously. Not just cancer. Cancer, I point out because of the amount of people that die from cancer. I'm talking about immune diseases across the board. People with, I have so many friends that have fibromyalgia, and they send me a list of the 32 symptoms that they find because they search it out.
Right.
They search it out. They find what the symptoms are, and they're like, look, doesn't this remind you of everything I've said to you about what I'm feeling? And I'm thinking to myself, did you ever think about searching what you could start doing to reverse the
Right.
process? Did
Right.
you ever decide to do that? Or are you just kind of like proud of the fact that you've diagnosed yourself properly? And so, well, yep, that's me. And I guess that's my, just, I'm just going to wear a hat that says fibromyalgia on it, and just, I'm good. And that just, it amazes me. It amazes me. And that's my soapbox for today.
Yeah. Well, it becomes their life. They own it, like you said. It's their secondary gain. A lot of times, what was me? I have another doctor's appointment. Can you take me? Oh my God, I have to go to the pharmacy. They started me on 2 more medications. Oh my God, oh wow. I mean, they own the disease. But I love when people don't own the disease, and it's kind of like my nanny that took care of my son for many years when I was full time in medicine. And she's such a powerful, impactful individual with helping my son grow to be the man that he is today. And I love her. And her name is Willie. And I'm like, I call her, she's in her 80s. And even when COVID hit, I said, Willie, what do you think about what's going on with COVID? She goes, I don't have time for this. I said, how's your arthritis? She goes, I don't have time for that either. And so she doesn't know anything. And she's still going strong. I think she's close to 90 now. And she cruises around and she meets people for lunch, and she just does whatever she wants. And I have, people that were diagnosed with things, and they just said, I don't have time for this. I'm busy. This is garbage. And that's another thing I wanted to bring up, and then we can close it out if you'd like. But when I was in practice, I had such a horrible problem with when physicians would give a prognosis to patients. It's okay to give a diagnosis. It's okay to say, I think that you have this, but don't complete the sentence with, you've got 3 months to clear up your affairs and get them in order. Or you got a year, or the statistics say 5 years. Never, ever, ever, ever give a prognosis. You can give a diagnosis based on what you think are the facts and say you have this, but then you go, here's what I recommend to get your body stronger, or your immune system stronger, or cardiovascular, pulmonary, urinary system, endocrine system, your brain chemistry, whatever those systems are. Let's talk about how we can do that to get rid of this diagnosis. Not, oh my, well, this is bad. Probably going to have to quit your job, get on welfare, get on disability. That drives me insane. I hate when healthcare professionals do that. Do not listen to that. You listen to the diagnosis, and then you do your due diligence on what you can do to combat that diagnosis the appropriate way. If you need a drug for a short period of time, do it for a short period of time. Don't accept the fact that chronicity with pharmaceuticals is appropriate, because the FDA is not your friend. They are your dealer.
Yeah. I believe you said that on the last show too.
I did, and it's my favorite one.
I was going to say, you cannot not say it now. Maybe we end every episode with Dr. Becky with her saying that. I would think for another show, a next show, sticking with something that I was saying here, and folks, there's like a million shows we can do here. I'd like to get a little more into Asante Organics, for sure, in the next episode. Maybe a little bit more of an understanding. People may, begin to go and search now. What is this? So they may have some questions. And on top of that, it just always seems like it's easier. It does, for men to lose the 10 pounds. Mm-hmm. For men you always see the jokes about the wives who don't want to talk to they're irritated with their husbands because of he's not even doing anything right and he's losing weight. I think there's so many women out there, especially in the premenopausal stages, into menopause, that are dealing with so many different hormonal changes, mm-hmm. that it's causing different problems from a weight gain and from a metabolic health standpoint. Maybe we can do this next episode where yes. Dr. Becky can give some advice out there. Absolutely. To people, letting them know this is the route you can go. And if this is your situation, giving them different options, because they're always complaining that they have the time to look up the symptoms, Now let's have the time to look up the solutions.
Yep. I would love to talk about that. Definitely. Okay. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Anything,
Well, I don't have anything more to add to this. I guess, when do you plan on having the Not Fit for Human Consumption website up and running?
I'm going to work on it this week. So hopefully by the following week, it's going to be up and running. And then I can have, I'll do lives on there or recordings. We can put the podcast up on there. And then I want people to be chiming in, good, bad, or indifferent. I want to hear opinions on what you think about Senate Bill 25. What do you think about not fit for human consumption? What do you think about toxins? I want to hear from people, and we can get pretty controversial, I'm sure, but I love it. It just brings up conversation, and all conversations, good conversation, as long as it's leading down a path that we can help people.
Yeah, absolutely.
I agree 100%.
All right. Well, Dr. Becky, thanks again for doing the podcast.
Thanks. It was great. And I will see you soon.
Thank you. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.